The Rouge Rugby wishes to extend our condolences to USA Rugby legend Kathy Flores. Flores was the first women's captain for the USA, part of the team that won the first Women's Rugby World Cup, and became the first woman to be appointed as head coach of a national team. She pioneered the growth of women's rugby in the United States, and though she is gone, her impact will remain in all those she has met and inspired. She will be sorely missed.
We would also wish to extend our condolences to the friends, family, and teammates of Brock Marshall, an athlete in the Ontario Blues Junior Arrows Academy, a widely respected youth player for his local Brock Rugby Club. He will be remembered as a fierce competitor and dedicated teammate.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. I'm Stu Hardy, and joined this week back from BC, it's Derek Brissett. Derek, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It was a fun trip. Got to kind of get away from everything a little bit. Checked out my brother's brewery. Stayed probably a lot longer than intended at said brewery. Enjoyed many of the delicious offerings that R&B Brewing had there, including pizza. Pizza's amazing out there.
All right.
Did a little bit of golfing, did a little bit of just general sightseeing as well. Checked out BC Lions game, which confused me when they threw the ball forward. But it is what it is. It's been a crazy week. I got back. I edited that podcast that you recorded with James, Doug, and Karen, which was awesome. James, I think, gets the prize for the best background we've ever had on. The moment I opened the video and I was like, oh, there's a stormtrooper helmet and stuff back there. I have this boring, for the people that are watching the video, I have this boring plain beige wall behind me. I feel like I need to consult James a little bit in getting a better background. So I edited that and then went to Ottawa for a friend's wedding. So it's been quite the busy little week. I did enjoy what you guys put together last week. It fun hearing the firsthand accounts of what it was like at the rugby rally. Love Archie, amazing. I'm so psyched about that. I don't know. I kind of always had a thing for mascots and stuff when I was a kid. Every time I went to a new stadium, I would try to get like the little plush mascot toys and stuff. So that was, I thought that was a lot of fun. I'm glad the Arrows are, they got a mascot now. And, I thought, some of the discussion that you guys had was super interesting. I liked what you guys were talking about with the last names on the back of the jerseys and stuff. And I think, looking at some of the guys that got signed across the MLR this week, like with, Mananu coming back to San Diego, which I'm sure will be something we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's, that seems like the perfect guy that you would want to be able to have kids walking around with a Nanu 12 written on the back of a MLR jersey. And there's obviously great players on every single team. And I think it's a good marketing tool and stuff. And I would like to see MLR kind of dive into that a little bit more. I thought that was kind of a fun thing for you guys to touch on. And I'm stoked that you guys love the stadium. So I can't wait to get out there myself. I've heard the press box might be something to behold too. So kind of excited to get out there. It just made me disappointed to miss the rugby rally, just some poor timing. But, seeing how hyped everybody else was, it just makes me kind of more excited to get back to the MLR season next year.
Yeah, the rugby rally was great. Again, thanks to Karen, Doug, and James for being on the podcast last week. But it's a new week and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. And speaking of recording last week, the day after we record, as always, big news drops. So we're going to stick with the Toronto Arrows for a bit because they have made a trade and a transfer, however you want to call it. And in exchange,
we'll use the North American terms. It's a trade.
Okay, so they have traded their second round draft pick for 2022 to Nola Gold in exchange for Kyle Baillie, the Gold's captain. So, pretty big name to be bringing back to the North, I think.
Absolutely.
So he's had 3 seasons with Nola Gold. He's got 32 caps for Canada so far. And just in the last season alone, Baillie got 39 tackles. That's a 92.9% tackle completion rate, which is amazing. 163 carry meters on 39 carries, 145 ruck arrivals, 24 line out takes, 3 offloads, 2 tackle breaks, 2 line out steals.
And that's just 8 games too.
Yeah.
Like, because he was hurt for the second half of the season, and then a little bit of Canada's rugby tour as well kind of got in the way of that. So
yeah, well,
some pretty great numbers and a bit of limited work. But yeah, didn't get to hear your thoughts on it last week though, because it happened right after. It's the worst.
Yeah, less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
No, this is a huge signing. So
huge trade. Well, I guess it's a trade.
Well, yeah.
I guess he signed too.
He signed on the trade document. So there we go. I think it also speaks a lot of what Nola Gold are planning for next year as well, because they're obviously picking someone else for their captain next season, clearly. But as in like,
I mean, Cam Dolan there, right? It's probably not that hard.
No. Yeah,
it's probably not that hard.
Fine, I suppose he's
Eric Howard was their captain in the first year too, right? They got captains down there.
Yeah, they rotate them. But I think Kyle Baillie will fit in well with the Arrows play. Obviously, he's played with them for the Canadian tours that have been going on this year. He's got experience with them, and better connections would just lead to better connectivity in play as well. And like the question comes up of like, who's Baillie going to be paired up with, and who's going to be alongside? And something that slipped under the radar for me especially, and we didn't talk about this on the show because this actually was announced back in September on his personal Instagram, is that Colby Francis has retired from professional rugby. He's
I don't think did we not talk about that? No,
I don't think we did, because I'm trying to find like news story like America's Rugby News will mention this.
He said he retired on Instagram.
So Colby, sorry for being so late on that story, but thanks for everything you've done in both the Arrows and Canadian jerseys, and we wish you all the best in your new career as well.
Yeah. So so obviously Francis was a guy that played lock and a little bit of back row. So there's holes there. The other thing too is like Tommy Della Vega is playing in Europe right now. So that's a little up in the air. So so we'll kind of look at this trade, break down this trade and why this trade is absolutely awesome. First of all, the fact that this trade, they announced the trade and they announced what it was for, they announced full details of the trade. That is great. Not every team kind of does that in Major League Rugby yet. There's definitely been some trades that have been made this past season and early in this offseason that'll be like so-and-so has been traded, or we have acquired so-and-so from this team, and that's the extent of the announcement. So nice to see that we've, got actual, concrete. Hey, they put out the full trade. It's Kyle Baillie for a second round pick in 2022. Now, looking at it, it's like Kyle Baillie for a second round pick in 2022 is an absolute steal. Obviously, part of this trade is for Baillie for like a little bit of personal reasons and stuff. So, even if the return doesn't seem like it's as high, honestly, kind of good on Nola. Good on Nola for helping players out and stuff. You can't necessarily be mad at that. But Nola's lost, Toronto's gain. You get Kyle Baillie, as you said. The guy's going to bring all the intangibles in the world, right? One of those guys that just loves getting stuck in, loves getting dirty, physical player, just an absolute menace. The big thing that I think kind of comes with this is, as I mentioned, it's like Tommy De La Vega's playing in Europe right now. He is as a medical joker, but who knows kind of where that stands.
We actually talked about this last week.
I know. Well. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. I listened to it.
Yeah.
But, so like as you guys said, though, it's like you're hopeful that he comes back, though, right? I think that was kind of the consensus of the room there, was that you're hopeful that he comes back, but who knows? But like the big thing is like in the line out too, right? Is like De La Vega was the primary the target in the line out, right? He was the primary jumper, right? And Wadden, Diana, Flesh, they all got their line out takes in there as well. But the lion's share of them certainly went to De La Vega's hands. So by getting Baillie, I mean, like we've seen what he can do with Team Canada, right? And how good he is at the line out. NOLA has Cam Dolan, so Dolan got a lot of the takes down there too. And obviously Baillie only played about half the game, so there's other guys on NOLA that kind of show that they're good in the lineup too. But when Bailey's in, it's him, right? And so it's like you kind of replace, I guess, if De La Vega is unable to return, you replace his ability, or you replace the lineout, the primary lineout jumper, right? He calls, he's called the lineouts for Canada. I know Jeb Sinclair on the broadcast for some of the Canadian games kept kind of highlighting like how much better the lineout looked with Baillie in it, right? So, that's obviously great to see. Obviously, as you kind of mentioned, he's been, a stalwart for the Canadian national team, which, has a pack that has a lot of Arrows players in it, right? So there's obviously going to be some team cohesion there already. So you don't really necessarily have to build up the, the chemistry or, how you guys like to kind of work together, because a lot of them have already played with each other. And, so this, I mean, I think for every kind of reason here, right? Like, it addresses a need that the team is probably going to have, which, you probably more options in the line out. No one's ever going to, obviously they also re-signed Adrian Wadden. So that's, they're locking up some of the guys, the line out options early here. And, so you get that back. You get all the intangibles, a guy that's, he's good at the breakdown. You mentioned that he's over 90% in his tackling, right? Which is exactly what you want. So he's good at that. Good at the set piece, good, just excellent player across the board. But specifically can also address some of the needs that the Toronto Arrows do have, right? So it's a brilliant trade. Like I said, the second round draft pick is a nothing price to give up for a guy like Kyle Baillie. So that's probably obviously a couple big names have been re-signed, big names have been re-signed and extended, but picking up Kyle Baillie is easily the biggest move of the Arrows offseason so far, and it's as far as a trade goes, absolute home run for Mark Winokur and the Toronto Arrows here.
Well, you mentioned Adrian Wadden, and he is part of a new collection of players that have been announced for 2022. So Wadden, the mountain from Mississauga, in his first season, accumulated 225 carry meters on 55 carries, 197 ruck arrivals, 67 tackles with 84.8% completion, 29 line-out takes, 5 tackle breaks, 4 offloads, 2 line-out steals, and that 1 line break that resulted in his first try for the Arrows colours. But speaking of tries, it's the top try scorer is back for another season. Gaston Mirez, especially after just securing Uruguay's place in the next World Cup. Mirez, not only the top try scorer, has the most carry meters at 1,751, the most line breaks at 28, and the most offloads for 20. And in that draft was also another new signing from the Eastern Suburbs in Australia. Is sorry if I'm probably going to butcher this name. Fa'alelei Sione. Lei, as he's known, has played for the Brumbies as a prop in 2017 and 2018. And also in 2018 and 2019, he played for Manawatu alongside a player that the Arrows will definitely know, Sam Malcolm. So, different ends of the pitch, but, part of the team. So I think, I think this is, we were talking last year about the issues of a prop with the Arrows, especially being in Atlanta and the difficulties that came around. So obviously this Lay joining the team, I think, will address or alleviate a lot of those concerns as well.
Yeah, and I mean he's a loose head too, right? So I mean for most of the year last year, it was Cole Keith and Pat Lynott on the loose head side, and then Brouwer was able to come down towards the end of the year. And I mean, if Brouwer wants to continue playing and he comes back or whatever, it's it's obviously depth, but who knows what his actual playing schedule is going to be like if he does come back, right? Yeah. But yeah, like signing Sione, I think it definitely, as you kind of said, there was a bit of a need for props last year, right? And I love this much the same way I like the Kyle Baillie trade, right? It's like you're going out and addressing the needs of the team with some of these, these new acquisitions, whether it be through trade or through signings, right? And so you can kind of look at the loose head side now, right? And it's like you got Sione, you got Keith, and you got well, I mean, I don't think have they announced if Lynott has returned or no?
I don't believe.
Yeah, I don't think he's been one of the guys that's been announced yet. But either way, like if you're kind of going off that, so if Lynott's back, then like that, you can kind of look at that as your like kind of loose head side, right? And then I mean, you still got like Roland and Ouellette out on the tight head options, right? There's so I mean, like I think it's a good sign. It's a good pickup for the Toronto Arrows, and I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. I'm also he had I was trying to look for some video on him. He has this really funny interview when he got signed by the Turbos initially. They're kind of introducing him, and he says that he started his career as an 8-man, but then decided he didn't want abs anymore and became a loose head prop. So definitely seems to have the personality to fit in on the team. The Arrows have always talked about their culture. It's always been a super important thing for the Toronto Arrows. And, it's, kind of because like the Uruguayan guys were able to, Mieres and Levis initially, they were able to help recruit Diana and De La Vega to an extent. Right. And, they've always kind of talked about, and then De La Vega in turn, it's like, hey, you can end up with Montero and Tucalet. And, there's a whole lot of these, like, the guys that they're signing are going back to like their old clubs or their teammates and being like, hey, Toronto's a great place to play. I'm not sure if that happened here, but it is interesting that it's like, yeah, Sam Malcolm, one of Sam Malcolm's teammates, and like I said, it's a need for the Toronto Arrows, right? So it's like, maybe it's like, hey, I played with this guy back in New Zealand, and we can use him. So hopefully he kind of fits in well. The other two guys, obviously, as we kind of mentioned already, Wadden, kind of looks like he could be a budding star. He's good at the lineouts. He scored a nice try, as you mentioned. I think the signing of Kyle Baillie and stuff, the Arrows are pretty deep at lock if they're bringing back most of the group that they had last year. Obviously Mason Flesh, that like played in the game, so you're assuming he's back anyways. He's played in the rugby rally and stuff, right? Yeah. But so it's like it's going to be probably a really deep group there. So I think you're probably, as you kind of mentioned, like who's Baillie going to play with. I mean early with, obviously there's still a lot of names to be announced on the roster. So I mean the possibly far too early lineup predictions. Maybe you're looking at Baillie, Cellini, and then like Wadden, maybe Flesh kind of fighting for that bench spot. And then, as you said too, Gaston Mirez, he's the club's all-time leading try scorer. So that's a guy that you are very excited to see. I believe it was Ignacio Chans of Uruguay that, he kind of first reported it a couple weeks ago. So I guess the Arrows is kind of making it official. Yeah. And, it's great to have him back. Mirez is also one of the funnest guys to like interview post game and stuff. Always good for a nice little soundbite and fun answer, which I always appreciate. So I'm excited to see him back. Can't wait. I'm excited to see him back. I'm excited to, and also like, I'm excited to see what he continues to do with Uruguay, because it makes, like I think we kind of mentioned a couple episodes ago, it's like, Uruguay's become a really fun team to cheer for just as an Arrows fan, just because, so many great Arrows players have ended up on there and they're contributing to them. And, it's a lot of fun to watch.
Absolutely. And at least we know that one of those teams will be going to the World Cup. Speaking of
who,
World
the Arrows
Cup,
or Uruguay?
The Uruguayan players for the Arrows, which basically means that Canada's going to the World Cup because they're the honorary Canadians.
Exactly.
That's the transitive property. I don't make the rules. I just follow them and enforce.
Going to be a lot of honorary Canadians at the World Cup.
Speaking of Canadians, the big news coming out of Rugby Canada this week. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Hanratty has become the women's sevens team interim head coach. He will be in the role until the end of 2021, which means he will be the head coach for both rounds in Dubai of the Women's World Series. And in lesser news, some Welsh guy called Kingsley Jones has announced a touring party for the men's team test matches, which was announced today.
Yes.
So this is a long list of, I believe, 30 players that will be heading over to Portugal and Belgium this November to play test matches against those nations. Let me just get this up. So we have Isaac Olsen, Matthew Owaru, David Richard, and Brock Webster. They'll be joining from Canada Sevens. If I remember correctly, let's get it right. Dave Richard, Isaac Olsen, Matt Owaru, and the Foster DeWitt have currently been playing in the Coastal Cup. We'll be talking about the Coastal Cup later as well. So even though they are classified as sevens players, they have been playing for the Pride as well. Some absentees, unfortunately, include Matt Tierney, Pat Parfrey, Cooper Coates, Cole Davis, Tyler Ardron, and unlisted, but we thought would be available, Will Kelly isn't in the squad either. So, and Kingsley Jones also released a video answering a few questions about this squad, saying that it's young players that they're focusing on, and and I'll be honest, I think a lot of the Canadian team are young players at the moment, so like mid-20s or younger. So I can see where they're coming from. But speaking of that video, Derek, do you want to lead?
Yeah, like I found the announcement to me, I found, like, reading it, the video, I found to be pretty frustrating. Reading it, watching it as a Canadian rugby fan. It's not that it's frustrating. Like, I'm not looking at the list of players and being like, looking at the picks. The picks don't bother me. Kind of perplexed that Will Kelly's name's not there. But that's the least. I think it's like the least of my worries at this point. But I look at this and I think, we spent, so Canada, right, Stu, correct me if I'm wrong, Canada was eliminated from the World Cup about a couple of weeks ago, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So we are aware that has happened.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, like, right, so we did that. We had a whole podcast talking about the fact that there needs to be a change in culture. There needs to be people's change in positions. There needs to be change in this, change in this, change in this, change in this, change in this and change in everything, right? They need to play with a different colored ball for all I care, right?
Yeah.
But, and I think you kind of go through it and it's like, this was, I think, Rugby Canada's first, since the team got eliminated, I think this was Rugby Canada's first moment to be like, here's the sign that we're going to change is coming. Like, we're going to be able to turn this around. And, we'll, eyes on the 2027 World Cup, right? Which could be in the United States. We'll get to that later. But it's like, eyes on the 2027 World Cup. It's like, here's the change. Here's how we're going to, change the program. We're going to start getting better, move back up into a place where, we can, qualify for the 2027 World Cup, right? Because that's what the goal is now, right? Focus on the young players, move toward the 2027 World Cup. But it's like, you need change to make that happen. And I think the thing that's like really disappointing about the announcement and Jones's video is that I don't see a single sign of change coming or happening in this. Right. Of like anything, like just like that's I think part of it is like just do something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, even if I don't agree with it or I don't like it or whatever on a personal level, like do something. But it looks like nothing's happened. And I mean, like before even like getting into the video, right? Like there's the paragraph, which has a quote from Kingsley Jones, which I don't think is in the video, but it's a quote from Kingsley Jones, right? Where it's like, where it says, it talks about, it's like, we can't wait to get back on the field and pit ourselves against a team ranked in the top 20 in the world. Right. Like, and then it says
that should be
like that. Why is that a goal? Like, why are you excited about that?
Yeah.
It's a top 20 team. Like, and then it says like Portugal are currently ranked 19 in the world rankings in the driver's seat to qualify for, the Rugby World Cup as European 2. Like, why are you like, is that what you're trying to sell me on as like a Canadian rugby fan right now? That we get to play a top 20 team? We should be a top 20 team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. Why are you trying to sell me on, like, I'm supposed to get hyped for a game against Portugal when you got eliminated from the World Cup 2 weeks ago? Like, it's just, it boggles. I don't get it. Like, why am I excited about that? Like, exactly. You know what I mean? Like a top 20 team. Like you were, as we mentioned, you were 11th in the world 10 years ago. Why am I like, I remember you almost being top 10. Like, why am I getting excited?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be excited about playing. Why are we excited about playing top 20 countries? Right. Like it seems silly to me. Like, is that what you're trying to sell me on right now? Is that we get the opportunity to play Portugal? No disrespect to Portugal, but and then, so that's the first thing. Stu, you have any thoughts on that before I get into the video?
Well, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. So I had to go through the torture of watching Rouge Rugby's video on how Chile beat Canada. And he makes a fantastic point of Canada's outdated attacking play, which is, and even though he
made a video on that like 3 years ago too.
Yeah, but he's had to make a new one because a Chilean player asked for it. But the point that I'm making, and that Squidge made as well, is that Kingsley Jones has said that this is the game. This is why so many of us were getting frustrated with the box kick array, because that is a Kingsley Jones tactic. That's not a Rob Howley tactic. And there were a few instances in which they did.
I don't care whose tactic it is. It's got to change. Something's got to change.
Yeah, exactly.
But
and that's the thing is that Kingsley Jones, he has to change.
Well, yeah,
for him, these two games
physically
should be an advertisement to the other nation, the other like tier 2 or tier 3 nations in world rugby to say, hey, I'm not that terrible. Employ me. Because after this year, they have to have a new head coach.
They have to have a new head coach 2 weeks ago.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
But
so, as in, like, and the whole thing of like planting a seed would have been great 20 years ago. The next best time to plant it is now.
Like that's the first level. Second thing, as you kind of alluded to, Stu, there's the Kingsley Jones video. So the first frustrating thing about that is it's Kingsley Jones in the video.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I've met Kingsley Jones a couple of times. I've had nothing but pleasant interactions with him. But yeah, it's time to go, right? Yeah. So it's like you need, and that's why it's like I need as a fan. I think with this squad announcement, I'm like, I wanted to see like a sign that Rugby Canada is changing and moving forward, right? And it's like you're keeping the head coach, at least right now, anyways, for these 2 games. Like I said, it's like the women's team got an interim head coach for 2 tournaments. You can slap an interim tag on, pick a guy, like just anybody, right?
Howley, just promote him to head.
Oh, either way, change these. But it's like that's the first frustrating thing, right? Because it's like I think like every fan has been calling for the coaching change, and it's like it hasn't happened yet. Because like you said, best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, next best time now, right? But so it's like I think that's the initial frustration is like, okay, like you got to make changes, right? And in pro sports, whether it's deserved or not, in pro sports, when teams are struggling, the first guy to go is always the coach.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously also for an international team, it's not like you can trade players either. So it's like it's got to go to somebody. But then you get to the content of the video too, it's like, I felt like as I was watching it, it just got increasingly frustrated watching the video. And like, okay, so he reiterates, what every coach says. I have no problem with this part. Talking about Portugal being a big challenge, talking about excited being back, a chance for, the boys to get a little redemption, maybe, which is like, honestly, if they can beat Portugal and Belgium and maybe end the year on a high note, which has obviously been a very difficult year for a lot of the players on the team, right? It's like that's a good thing, right? I'm not taking anything away from that. Like, put your heart and soul into beating Portugal and Belgium right now. And, maybe, they can turn. So he mentions that, right. He's talking about like the cohesion of the team, because it's like a lot of similarities and stuff, which is less like, all right, sure. He mentions that it's like South America have got their act together. Right. And it's like, all the improvements that South America has made. And I'm just like watching them. I'm like, yeah, that's why you're out of the World Cup. We know they got better. Yeah. But it's like, he kind of mentions like maybe talks a little bit about some of the difficulties of maybe getting some of the European guys to come over. Which, I mean, obviously some of the questions that were done here was just in obvious damage control mode from social media reaction. But then it's like there's certain other things though that it's just like in the video, man, he kept bringing up the first test match against the USA. Like, I care that you beat the USA in that game. You know what I mean? Like, I look at that and I'm like, that game, the first test against the United States, the first leg, it's the best game that Rugby Canada, the men's national team, has played in like 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. That game was amazing. Everything went like perfectly in that game. Right. Yeah. And I don't want to take anything away from like any of the staff or players involved in that. That game was perfect. It was the best game they've played. But it's like, and he's talking about that, but it's like, you lost the series, right? Like you're like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I know you won that game, but you lost the series. Like, that's why you have to make this video. And you're talking about not being in the World Cup is because you lost that series.
Yeah.
Like my girlfriend is a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan, which is sometimes a problem because I am a diehard Leaf fan. Right. Yeah. And, we watch hockey together, and I'll like try to always like kind of banter back and forth with her, the friendly jabs and stuff as you do with all your friends or whatever. Right. And, every time, what's happening to me right now, Stu, is every time I go to be like, hey, Montreal's 0-5, they stink. Haha, Josh Anderson can't score anymore. Haha, Nick Suzuki's terrible. You know what she says to me every single time I mention that? Haha, we beat you in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I can't come back with? Yeah, but we played really good in game 4.
Yeah.
That's not something I can come back with, because who cares? Because you lost. Right. And it's like, he's sitting here, and Kingsley Jones to me is sitting here being like, it's like, we played really well in this game against the United States in the first. Like, I don't care. You lost the series.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, don't win. Like, why are we set and focus on the fact that we beat the United States for like what? And without ignoring the fact that we're 1-15 against them in the last 8 years, 1-16. What is it? 1-15 and 1 tie, right? Something to that effect.
A good number of years of not.
Yeah, it was 8 years. Yeah, you've beaten them once, right? And it's like, so it's like you played again. In fairness, the best game Canada's played, but it's like you, and I know that you can play that, but it's like, you can probably play that well, but it's also like you're closer to the team that lost to Chile than you are to that team, and it's one of those things. It's like in the video too. He mentions that he was like, the handling errors in that in the first test against the USA was amazing. According to him, he said there was only one handling error in the game. And I'm like, awesome. Again, you lost this. Awesome. That's great. I agree. You played amazing in that first test against the United States. Then you lost the series. And if we're going to be like, yeah, there was one handling error in that game against the United States, that's awesome. Can we talk about the 497 that were made in the next 3 games?
Yeah.
Right. Like, it doesn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's nothing that's been changed. And then, like, you know, he goes on to talk about the fitness level of the players, which is important. I'm not trying to say that fitness level is not important, but he's mentioning that it's like, on average, like, Canada's Bronco scores are better than Wales when they were ranked. He specifically says when Wales were ranked number 1 in the world prior to the 2019 World Cup, which I'm assuming is probably some info Rob Howley gave him. But you know what I mean? But it's like, he's being like, yeah, the Bronco scores are better. And it's like, awesome. You played Wales earlier this year. Sorry. Right. And it's like, guess, like, unfortunately, like, as cool as it is that the Bronco scores are great, we're not playing Broncos.
Yeah.
Right? We're playing rugby. You know what it, like, you know, it's like, there's, yeah, Wales maybe doesn't have better Bronco scores than you, but they beat you by 50.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, I care, like, fitness is important, but it's like, is that the aspect that you're trying to sell me on? It's that Eric Howard has a really good Bronco score? Because, like, there's a bunch of people that have really good Bronco scores that can do a Bronco that aren't necessarily good at rugby. Right. It's a fitness test. There's a lot of fit people. It's professional rugby. A lot of teams can do Broncos. Like, I don't, like, is that the biggest selling point of the men's national team right now, Stu? Is that they're good at Broncos? Is that what I'm saying? Like, that's like, watching that video. Is that what I'm supposed to have for the future?
It's the wrong thing to focus on.
Yeah.
It's in like, oh, our fitness is great. Cool. Are you fit enough to score tries?
Yeah. It's like, how, like, what's, because that's the thing, right? It's like, I wish that video was like, talk about, like, I mean, maybe you don't want to give away game plans, but like, what's the plan for, like, the attack? Like, what's the plan for, you know, the defensive strategy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the actual, like, are you, like you mentioned, it's like, are you going to keep doing the boxes? Like, are you going to get, like you said, the Squidge video being like, they're really outdated, right? It's like, are you going to, like, do something to the attack to, like, spice it up? Like, have a guy not run in a straight line, like, have the ball not just go like 10, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
Right. Like, have, like, change up something there. I don't know. Right. Like, I just didn't like, that's the thing. It's like, I think this whole thing, like, you know, he ended it with, like, a little bit of positive thing. He mentioned that it's like, he would love to see, like, 100 Canadian players in the MLR. Honestly, I think that's a good goal to have. That would be nice for Rugby Canada for sure. So it's like, I don't disagree with everything that was necessarily said in this video, but it's like, as the first thing that Rugby Canada put out, or at the very least, the first thing Rugby Canada has put out from the perspective of the men's 15s team, since they got eliminated from the Rugby World Cup, it's like, I found it very frustrating. Just because it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I just from, like, and it has nothing to do with the player selection, as I said, like, that's a different topic of conversation altogether. But it's like, you know, are you trying to get me back into, like, be excited for, like, because that's what you have to do, right? As any pro sports team does. Like, if you're, like, you know, if you're a bottom feeder team in the NHL or the NBA or the NFL, right? It's like, your thing is, like, you have to sell your fans on, like, the future, right? Like, that's right. So it's like Kingsley Jones, Rugby Canada. It's like, you got to sell us on the future here. And it's like, when everybody's calling for change, it's tough to sell people on the future when it's like, everyone wants to see some change, or to see at least a sign of change.
Yeah. And
then, you know, like, this isn't it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
one of the things that the article also mentions is that broadcast details, they're still being finalized with Belgium rugby and Portugal rugby. But I swear to God, if I turn in and it's Canada doing one phase and then box kicking it away, I'm demanding a refund.
Yeah,
I'm sending the bill to Rugby Canada and being like, fix it. Anyway, Right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about something else out in BC at the moment, the Coastal Cup. Very interesting set of results this week. I think Pride versus UBC was probably like the big one to talk about. Pride were coming in 3-for-3, but UBC seemed to be entirely in control throughout that game. It was 10-3 until like the 79th minute, and then Pride were able to get over, score the try, nail the conversion to remain undefeated, but not get all the wins that they wanted. But incredible effort by UBC. Curry Hitchborn has obviously done a fantastic work with those guys, told them what to focus on. They obviously have this coming week off to, Curry, I'm sure, will be drilling in what they need to focus on, because, it's going to be an interesting way to see how they'll finish out. We've only got 3 weeks left of the Coastal Cup as well. The other games that were played, UVic versus Trinity Western, UVic 36-25. And then Van East 9 to the Vancouver Waves 16. So the fixtures that are coming up this week are the Pride versus Trinity Western. Then we have the Battle of the Beach, as we have the Tide versus the Wave. And then we also have UVic versus Van East. And you can catch all the games live now, I believe, on their YouTube channel, as well as any other replays if you so wish to watch them. Also mentioning that Barmy Beach have won the Fall Marshall Championship, and they defeated the Oshawa Vikings 59-24. So congratulations to Barmy Beach. Now we're going to take a little trip south of the border because our friends over at the USA Rugby have announced their official World Cup bid to host either the 2027 or 2031 Men's Rugby World Cup and the 2029 Women's Rugby World Cup. They've given a long list of 28 potential locations, 27 of which are in the United States themselves, and they've also included Vancouver, BC in that listing. Now, obviously, that's nothing set in stone yet. They'll probably be brought down to probably at most like 10 or 12. But interesting that they have BC and not Toronto. Maybe they were hoping to have BMO Field, but they haven't been able to sort out details with MLSE or the city of Toronto. You never know. But things change, plans change. So, nothing set in stone yet. The bid has only just been announced. We don't even know if it's going to be successful. Speaking of which, World Rugby will announce their decision for the World Cups from 2025 to 2031. That's 2 women's and 2 men's.
Are you concerned that there's only one Canadian
January
city on
22? It? I'm not concerned, because I think that the United States has the ability to host a Rugby World Cup entirely on its own. It doesn't need Canada. It could offer Canada host, but I don't believe so.
Like, what I wonder is, like, because I don't believe, and I haven't actually looked this up, I'm just kind of thought of it now, but it's like, has a Rugby World Cup game ever been played in a country where a team is not in the Rugby World Cup?
No. So
right?
So that's the thing. If Canada was selected as host venue, they would have to automatically qualify as hosts.
Yeah, you're not but would they be considered the host though? Would it be a USA World Cup? I don't know.
Well, the annoying thing is that the only other nations that have hosted that have been host venues for World Cups that they themselves haven't hosted would be nations that have already qualified. So, for example, Wales in 1999 had games played in England, Scotland, and Ireland and France. Then when it was France in 2007, Wales returned the favor. And when England hosted in 2015, Cardiff again hosted games. Yeah. So,
but it's like all those countries are like tier 1 nations.
They are tier 1, and
no
so
questions.
They've also already qualified. So
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, right. And it's like, and I know obviously we're hopeful that, despite what my rant may have implied in the past 10 minutes of this podcast, or whatever. Like, I'm hopeful that Rugby Canada is going to be able to qualify for the 2027 World Cup. And if Kingsley Jones is going to still be the head coach, I hope, he's able to, lead them back to a World Cup. If that's not going to change, then, whatever, so be it. But it's like, if you're World Rugby, like, is this not a concern? Like, would you, right? Like, if you would have a game like in a country, like, I don't know. Do you deserve to host a World Cup game if you're not in it, right? Like,
well, this is the thing. I also feel that by 2027 and 2031, there has been enough development, not only in North America, but other nations, to warrant the expansion. So go from 20 teams, 24 teams, I think is reasonable enough. But this is the question: is that what's his name? Ben Foden was asked about this on Rugby Pass of the World Cup bid, and he said that he feels that 2027 may be too soon for the USA to host. And I've got to agree with it. If the USA gets the World Cup in 2029 as well and 2031, because they want to treat both World Cups on the same level, so that would be things like the final. Both would be in an NFL-sized stadium.
The Women's World Cup would be awesome to have games in Canada.
Yes.
Again, because I think they hosted a while ago. Canada hosted a while ago, but that would be awesome, especially with how good USA and Canada's women's teams are. I'm probably would be more excited for the 2029 World Cup bid. So,
well, I can tell you don't have to worry about qualifying for the 2029 World Cup.
What do you make of the cities that were actually put up for saying that they're interested in? Anything jump out at you, or?
Well, it was the fact that some cities had to include states and some didn't. So thank you for including that Birmingham was in Alabama. As of course, I wouldn't have known that otherwise. But then again, this is the thing, is like that's a long list and plans change. So I'm not like tied to any idea. I still personally believe that the World Cup should open at Soldier Field and it should finish at SoFi Stadium. But again, that's personal choice. That's what I think.
What if they do like if they're going to go in LA though, just because that's where like the Giltinis play. So I wonder if they go with the Coliseum.
I think the Coliseum will be a good choice as well. And also it doesn't have an NFL team.
The funny thing is,
don't have to worry about that.
Right. Like, I mean, maybe an NFL team decides to build something new between now and then too, right? Because like the funny thing is like right now we're looking at SoFi as a state-of-the-art stadium, but the truth being by the time it hits 2031, it's going to be a 10-year-old stadium too, right?
That is true. Yeah.
So, I mean, but then granted, I just suggested the Coliseum, which is like 100 years old. So, but I think you probably, I don't know. I feel like you probably go, I like Soldier Field in Chicago. I think that would be a good one. I think that'd be a good one for a final too, but open as well. Especially
personally, I think that as if the tournament is going to be played between like September and October, as it gets colder, as we know, because we're on like the East Coast or Eastern time zone, and it'll be, and it's already getting like it's currently 8 degrees Celsius at the moment. You want to end it where it's like nice and warm. The sunsets still look pretty. Like for a lot of foreign fans coming over, they'll be like, "Oh, this is nice." While the locals are in winter coats.
That could be like the equalizer, though, man. Let's make the All Blacks play. Like, let's see what's on here. Yeah, let's make the All Blacks play in Boston in November.
Yeah,
let's do it. Why not? All right, like what's like could be an equalizer or something. Anywhere cold? What's the coldest city on here? Actually, it might be Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. Chicago Open.
That'd be good. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so as we said, the bid will be decided on its success in January of 2022 by World Rugby, and we will know 4 World Cups at that time. So here's hoping that the USA can at least get like the Women's World Cup and hopefully one of those Men's World Cup dates as well. But speaking of USA Rugby, there was a rugby event down in Washington, D.C., the 1874 Cup. And I just want to say the last time Canada faced New Zealand, it was, I believe, 66-0 to New Zealand. And they go, still, could be worse. The final score, the USA 14, New Zealand 104.
Hmm.
It is New Zealand's highest score ever against
How
USA
how
Rugby.
bad did Perenero want that try at the end of the game?
Absolutely. That was he had gotten that sword. He had that targeted the second he came on. As in, like, as soon as the clock's red, I'm getting this down. I'm getting the century.
Perenero, man, he gives it 100% no matter what the score is, I guess.
Yeah, makes it 100. Although that said, Nate Augsburger now goes down as the first American to score a try against the All Blacks.
Yeah, that's
so congratulations to him. As Ryan Mateus also got a try for the USA as well. Now, I think that the circumstances surrounding the event have made it worse than it could actually be. And by that, I mean, is that this is a game in which, in regular circumstances, New Zealand would have sent uncapped players, maybe, Sam Whitelock just to be the captain or so on and so forth. However, because of COVID and travel restrictions, especially returning to New Zealand, that just wasn't logical or reasonable to bring over a squad of uncapped or fewer than 5 caps players to play against the US. So because this squad is now going over to Europe and they're going to be playing Wales, Ireland, France, and Italy, I believe, over the Autumn Nations series. So, they have to, and that's the squad that they have to travel with. So I think that, obviously if you're going up against the best in the world, and this is a team that has already put a century past another tier 2 nation earlier this year. So it makes sense that they'd be able to do it again. But I've got to say is that the last time the USA played New Zealand, they only scored 2 penalties. So to now go and score 2 tries against a near enough full strength All Blacks team,
the moral victory.
That is so. Yeah, I'm finding the silver linings for my American friends. I would say overall the event was a success. 40,000, nearly 40,000 tickets sold. F45 and Adam Gilchrist seem to have made a major investment in American rugby as well, beyond MLR as well.
There's quite the F45 logo at the.
Absolutely. Well, I'm thinking that I'm thinking for like a future event, not necessarily 1874 Cup, but you could have, I think that it's shown that rugby can sell in an NFL stadium. I mean, we've obviously had like the Chicago series of games, so that doesn't seem to be the issue. I think it is, however, like the level of talent. I think maybe it could be a case of the event becomes like a double header. So it's the USA versus, say, another tier 2 nation, maybe another one of the Americas. And then it can be like a tier 1 nation in the same way that we had Ireland versus New Zealand in 2016. And that was a fantastic event. To be honest, I think getting Ireland to come over, especially in New England, would always go down well. Like Gillette Stadium, have a game there. I think that will sell lots of tickets. Okay. What do you make of the matchup? Do you think it was a success?
I mean,
from an event point of view, not from a.
It is what it is. The scoreboard is what it is. I mean, the currently number 2 ranked team in the world, the perennial, always considered the best team in the world. There's always the
most dominant team in sport, in men's sport.
Exactly. There's a whole lot, right? Every time, no matter how well they're playing, it's like they're always the World Cup favorite, or they're the favorite to win every match that they play in, no matter what their form is like. It's the best team in the world, like you kind of said. USA squad, not necessarily the strongest Eagle squad that you can actually put out there, right? I think America's Rugby News did like an absentee 15 of all the great American players that weren't on that team. It's the All Blacks versus the USA Eagles, right? Like, I mean, I think a lopsided score was expected. No matter what, though, I think like the pride always takes a little bit of a hit when you give up a century mark. So,
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure the USA would have wanted a better result than that. But, I think, like I said, it's like I saw Artie Savea like sent out a tweet that just said, America know how to hold events, man. That was so special to be a part of. FedEx and fans take a bow, clapping emoji, fire emoji. And he says, at Sky Stadium, surely we can do some stuff to spice up rugby games. Concerts before games, local artists perform barbecues on the walk up to the stadium for fans, if only. Fans, what do you think? And then he does a little fingers crossed emoji thing. So, I mean, like, I think one, it's like this kind of, I guess that's a really positive thing too, right? Because, like you said, it's like the Rugby World Cup bid, right, is like, it's like it's cool to see like guys like Savea on the All Blacks, where like the country where like rugby is king, like the rugby is an integral part of the country's culture, right? Especially the sporting culture. And it's like, to see him being like, hey, like, the game I just played at FedEx Stadium is better than like the atmosphere at Sky Stadium in New Zealand, right? Like where he normally plays. It's like that's a good sign, because it's also like that's a good sign for the USA World Cup bid too. I think it's like if you have guys like the All Blacks players are coming to America, and they're playing in Washington, or they've played at Soldier Field before, or whatever, playing LA or any other cities that they may play in the future, right? It's like if those guys are having a good time, right? If like New Zealand rugby is coming here and they're having a good time, like in playing in American cities, playing in front of American crowds at these NFL stadiums and stuff, then like that's probably a good sign for the USA Rugby World Cup bid, right? Like if the top tier countries are like, yeah, playing in America is awesome, let's go to a World Cup there, right? Like it's a good sign, right? And where 40,000 people at the game, like that's for a game that really, because of like COVID and stuff, was probably announced on real short notice and compared to like other events, or like how long ahead of, or like how much time you would normally give people to buy tickets. The time to buy tickets for this game seemed a lot shorter. Obviously we're still feeling some effects of the COVID-19 pandemic here, but it's so I think ultimately it's positive. The broadcast and stuff all looked really good. New Zealand put together some entertaining tries. Like there's some highlight reel ones mixed in there. Probably a few too many for Gary Gold to care to look at, but it's like I said, it's like it's tough when it's like it is what it is when if you're the Eagles playing the All Blacks, like what can you really expect out of that? But like you said, it's always cool to see the haka on North American soil, and if Savea is any indication, if the players are enjoying it, it probably bodes well for like the future. And it's I think you can kind of see it too in the MLR and stuff. It's like I think like no country in the world does sports better than the USA, right? Like it's the pinnacle. No matter what the actual sport is, they do it better than everybody else in the world. So I mean, it'd be cool to see a Rugby World Cup there, and it's cool to see guys like Savea kind of also recognizing it, and hopefully that kind of energy helps get push through this USA World Cup bid, because it'd be awesome. Not just for the United States, but I think it'd probably be awesome for Canadian rugby too. And a lot of Canadian rugby fans, is because we've never had a World Cup in that kind of proximity and stuff. Although traveling the world is fun, but I've never been to
having a World Cup on
your
time zone sure helps.
Yeah, exactly. That's the exciting thing, right?
If you look at like things like the Super Bowl and see like the tailgate and stuff for that, then just imagine what it's going to be like.
NFL games are amazing. Exactly. NFL games are amazing. And it's like that's the thing. Is like I don't think like few sports I think do like pageantry to like better than football, right? And it's like if you get kind of people that can kind of lend a little bit of that like football kind of energy and stuff, I think like if guys like Savea are impressed by it, man, like hopefully it helps. Like that's the biggest thing, right? Like even like for Major League Rugby, like you said, right? It's you want like those guys that come over from the big countries and stuff, if you want them to have fun and enjoy their time in North America, right? Because then that just helps kind of grow the profile and everything, right? So yeah.
All right, so we've got a final bit of rugby news for North America. So as we mentioned before, Foster DeWitt, he's in the Canadian squad going over to Europe. He has signed for the New England Free Jacks out west in San Diego. A fan favorite and All Blacks legend is returning. Ma Nonu has signed for the 2022 season.
So
I think that's going to be huge.
Oh, for sure. I'm super excited about this. So the last game I've actually watched live was in Vegas. So it was San Diego versus the Colorado Raptors. And
never heard of them.
Right. Yeah. And Nanu scored his first MLR try in that game. And I was just kind of like, I've never seen Nanu play live, and watching him live is incredible. And I'm so excited that he's back in Major League Rugby just for another chance to see him live. I hope Toronto gets a home game against San Diego next year. I think honestly, just having Nanu and Rob Shaw, San Diego is probably should be one of those teams that's they should be playing. Hopefully they're playing in front of big crowds, no matter where they go, because they got some of those names to draw people in for sure.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of San Diego, Kenai Nasokeke has left San Diego. He is joining Houston next year. Another player that is joining Houston, but this time is coming from the Lions in the URC in South Africa, is Dylan Smith. He's coming over. Another departure from San Diego is Cam Clark. Not going to another MLR team, though. He is heading back to Australia. He's joining the Brumbies. And John Sullivan, he's joining Rugby ATL from NOLA as well. So it's not just Kyle Baillie who's moving to a different MLR team from NOLA. But something to mention, and this was in the Rugby Rally post interview with Bill Webb, is that he said MLR will be starting the 2022 season in February, with Arrows home games to be in April through to June. So Arrows fans, those are the dates that you need to be setting aside your weekends to ensure the home games and the home support. I think after the guys last week were saying that it's going to be York Lions Stadium, and it's going to be a fantastic event for you to go to. Okay, we're going to wrap up. We just want to mention that you can watch the Coastal Cup on YouTube if you want to watch the Premiership, not the URC this week, because the URC is on hiatus during the Autumn Nation Series. So if you want to watch the Premiership, it will be on Sportsnet. And speaking of the Autumn Nation Series, now on the website, it says that you can watch this on DAZN. However, DAZN haven't yet announced the schedule of what games they'll be showing. So, we're putting DAZN in quotation marks at the moment. It may be, hopefully it'll be all games. It may just be one game and highlights. Again, we're not 100% sure, but that is where they say. Okay, so we're going to end the podcast there. If you enjoy this and you want to hear more of our episodes, you can listen on Anchor FM or Spotify at the Rouge Rugby. We're also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, what are your socials if people want to get in touch?
My socials at Reset the Jet across everything. Took a little bit of a social media break during that vacation, but so I think I got a couple of messages and stuff that I have to get back to, but I'll be back in kind of active now, especially once this episode drops. So look at at Reset the Jet across everything. Gets it done.
And if you want to get in contact with me, it's either Twitter or Instagram, going with the handle Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, Derek, thank you for joining me again on this podcast, and thank you all for listening or watching, and we hope to see you and that you'll join us on the next episode.